Hey guitar teachers, welcome back. So we are here today to continue the discussion of the Christopher Parkening Guitar Method Volume 1. And when we left off, I was saying that there are some subjective weaknesses that this book has, being that there's not a lot of opportunities for creativity, and there are some very obvious places in here where he could have taught some baseline theory. So today we're going to go through and talk about some of those. If you like this video, please press the button that indicates that you do so, and also subscribe. Okay, let's go. Okay, so I mentioned last time I usually start out with this piece in the book. It's a good test to see if they're going to be able to hang with the pace of the book. It does move very fast. That being said, the pieces are great, which is one reason I really love it. And another reason I really love it is because it gets into these two voice exercises so fast. One of the reasons I love classical guitar, and my kids tend to love classical guitar, is that you really get the whole picture of a song, right? You get the melody and you get the harmony. And to just, be able to jump right in and be able to do something like this and show mom and dad a complete song is really extraordinary. Anyway, so we have this waltz in E minor and we have Air. Both of these songs require a very similar skill set. So in this one you have to play a high G and an open G, and in this one you have to play some low open strings. Other than that, we're dealing with basically the same set of concepts. So it would stand to logic that as we proceed, we can do a lot of similar variations with these two. Theme and variations is really my approach to making sure that I'm teaching real musical concepts and we're getting some, compositional theory type skills in these. So just looking at these two pieces, one of the differences that I mentioned was there were no bass notes in this and there are bass notes in this. Well, luckily, by the time they get to here, let's see, they know an open G, right? And they know an open D from this song. So we can easily take these measures here, which are outlining a C major chord, and throw an open G under them. And then likewise, we can throw an open D under the ones that would be harmonized with a G7. I've already talked about this prelude in C major and how it's a good opportunity to present different arpeggio patterns. You're kind of sneaking a technical exercise into this piece that they just love to play because it sounds really pretty. So once we have this arpeggio exercise, we can come back here and add thirds under all these melody notes, and then voila, we have 3 notes in each measure. We can certainly make arpeggios out of that. When we get to Spanish melody, we see we have a few things. We have pedal tones. So if we come back here to Air, instead of playing just one bass note per measure, we can start to add pedal tones after every note. And this becomes an actually great exercise in counting, because when they hit these half notes, they're going to have to figure out how many eighth notes they need to play in order to fill the rest of it. Likewise, in Spanish melody, we have a lot of stepwise motion, and we have a few neighbor tones here and there. Both of these pieces sound great with some neighbor tones and some stepwise motion thrown in. Let's take a look at what that would look like. Alright, so some waltz and A minor variations. Couple things to note. I do use Guitar Pro. The reason being that it allows tab. In general, I'm not a huge advocate for tab. I think kids should be reading as much as possible. But there are some instances where it does come in handy. So, a few things to note about this first one. Well, first of all, I mentioned that we could make it into an arpeggio exercise, so that's really easy. You just go low, middle, high on all of these. I do sharp the G's in these measures. Reason being, it's sort of outlining a E7 chord, so adding this G sharp really pulls in that tonality and starts to get them used to the sound of, that dominant 7/5 chord in a minor key. And the last thing to note would be that I prompt them to write in the missing thirds. Reason being, kids for some reason tend to understand things way better when they start writing them. So when they get to here and they have to write in a B and really internalize that they are writing in a B and it's the third of this, it really just does wonders for their reading. So coming down here to write in the missing neighbor tones. So for neighbor tones, what I usually like to do is turn these into eighth notes and then come back up here and we have our quarter. We come back down to the bass line and throw in a rest right there, and voila. Conceptually, they're going to have to turn quarter notes into eighth notes, which we got some practice with in the Air variations when we were adding in G pedal tones, and they're turning quarter notes and half notes into eighth notes. And this will really work to reinforce that, work up that spiral very nicely. And then I usually go with lower neighbor tones just because I find it retains the melody a little bit better. When you go with upper neighbor tones, it tends to dilute what the melody actually is. That being said, as kids start to progress, I do think it's a good idea to give them the option. Again, teaching these compositional skills and is really about just making decisions. So giving them that decision to make is great. So that's about how the first line would look after you're done with it. In general, I find that it's good to give them the answers, at least in the beginning, the first time something occurs, right? So that's the first time we got a C, first time we got an E, D, B. D comes up here again. We've already done a D, so they have a cheat sheet of sorts. You can prompt them to use their resources, and then the first time we have an F. So coming down here to stepwise motion, what I will usually do is change the last bass note and a measure into that stepwise note that we need. So we can't do any stepwise here. We can certainly do it here. Then we can certainly do it here. And we can certainly do it here. Then we will come to the bass line, and we will rest wherever we would be playing two notes at the same time. And it comes out like that. You'll notice in this measure, for this variation, I went ahead and gave it to them because while we have gone from a D down to a C down to a B, we have not gone from a D up to an E up to an F. So now that we've discussed some of the approaches that I found to overcome some of the subjective weaknesses in this book, you're probably thinking to yourself, well, we haven't really talked about creativity, have we? So what I find is when you're starting to teach composition, especially if you're brand new at it, there's this perception that, okay, if I'm going to teach composition, I need to have kids writing things, right? And they need to go write a song. That's what composition is. In my experience, when you're scaffolding these skills, the first thing that you really need to focus on is just having them make decisions. And when we think about it, that's really what composition comes down to, right? Like, you start out with something and then you try to find something that goes after it that sounds good. So once we have all of these tools, these contrapuntal tools, these variations that we've made with the various songs in the book, a good way to start to get into some of that is just to say, okay, well, we've decided to play variations using this set of concepts. So why don't you put one together on your own that combines some of your favorite ones? And at that point, the kid starts to think about, okay, how can I fit these things together? What things do I need to do in order to make them fit together if they don't perfectly fit together already? And that's a really good start on some of the creative compositional type tools and skills that we are trying to develop in our kids so that they are complete musicians. So once again, if you like this approach and you want to try it out in your own studio, there is a link in the description to my Teachers Pay Teachers account. The first part of this book, the materials, will be under the freebies section, so you can have it for free. And the second part I should have up pretty shortly. So be sure to check back if you're a fan of the work and you're having success with it in your studio and you would like to continue through the second half of the book in the same manner. Thank you. Have a wonderful week. May all of your students be perfectly practiced. All right. See you later.